Welcome everyone to our webinar. Today we're going to be talking about how one of our clients, SUSE, have transformed the way they plan across the finance and sales departments. Maybe we'll give about 30 seconds for the remaining participants who haven't been able to join, and we will start. Okay, I think we've got pretty good audience now, so let me kick off. Welcome everyone, my name is Paweł Kowalski. Thank you for joining our webinar today. Let me explain the agenda. What we're gonna do for the next 45 minutes is I'll start with a quick introduction and some housekeeping rules about our webinar. Then we will move on to together with Martin Groth, our guest today from SUSE, and share the journey that they went through in transforming how they plan with using Anaplan technology. And then at the end, we've got a time allocated for you to ask questions and give you some answers. Before that, I would like to also show you a bit of the Anaplan platform, just to give you a look and feel how the technology can enable the transformations as SUSE has gone through. Okay, so really a couple points on housekeeping. Everyone is on mute, so there's nothing you need to worry about, or click, so that's the default. For the questions, you have a panel with the questions. Please drop them at any time. We will answer all your questions. We will try to address most of them at the end. If any of them will run out of time, we will answer and distribute those answers to all the participants. Okay. Right, so yeah, my name is Paweł Kowalski. I'm co-founder, co-owner of ProfitEnd. At ProfitEnd, all we do is implement Anaplan technology, helping businesses to plan. So Anaplan is a global leader, a cloud solution in the space of business planning, the tool that has been chosen by SUSE to help with that transformation that we're going to be talking about. And yeah, I'm joined today by our guest Martin Groth, Director of Go-to-Market Execution at SUSE. Martin, do you want to say a couple of words and maybe talk about give a quick brief on your company as well?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Martin Groth, my name. I'm within commercial operations at SUSE. I'm basically orchestrating the annual planning process for our sales organization, and I'm also, from a business perspective, I'm responsible for the core tools we're using to support our sales processes. Yeah, SUSE, I hope you know. So you can see this little chameleon over here. That's our logo. We are a global provider of open source software solutions for enterprise Linux, for container management, and for edge solutions. We like to talk about us helping our customers to simplify, modernize, and accelerate through the business transformations they have to go through. And we like to look at ourselves as a role model in those transformations. And I think today's session is giving you some insights into how we as SUSE have been trying to transform in this situation.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Martin. Yeah, and I think we want to share the journey, from the beginning, how it started to the kind of where you are right now, and we're going to be talking about what are your steps for the future. I wanted maybe to take a step back and look at what prompted you to that you had to change that situation, right? So a couple of points that I'd like to highlight to our participants is kind of those main pain points, yeah, that I could see when we started working with the organization at the beginning, and I can just highlight a couple, and you can add from your side. I think when we started our journey back in December 2019, what struck me was that your organization was growing extremely fast, and you went through and had some plans for additional acquisitions, and you are now listed on the stock exchange, but just before that you also had private equity investors, and they were requiring very good visibility of how the future looks like, and what are the main KPIs, meaning revenue, cash, and so on. At the same time, I think everything was supported by spreadsheets in terms of planning, that made people work in silos. There was a lack of that communication and so on. And you had also been using some legacy tools for other areas that also could benefit with upgrading, and there was lack of this source of truth, a single source of truth. Yeah, I think coming back to that silos. I mean, from your perspective, Martin, anything you would like to add or kind of explore maybe on what it meant for you in terms of implications?
Yeah, maybe just to give a little bit more background. I mean, growth is actually a nice challenge to have, I would say, but it comes with not only growing revenues, but also growing the size of the organization, new structures we have to put in place, and then we have to constantly scale up our tools and processes, obviously. And as you mentioned, we went through a couple of changes in our holding structure. So we were part of Micro Focus 4 years ago, and then there was a divestiture from Micro Focus, and we had only 1 year to ramp up our own IT infrastructure. So by the time we were separated from Micro Focus, we didn't have an IT department, we didn't have a finance department, we didn't have a HR department. So all of that had to be ramped up, and within just a year we built our own IT stack, and then obviously we also had to become independent in how we're doing the planning process and everything else. And fast forward, you mentioned it, so it took only 2 years for an IPO. So we are now a listed company, which comes with additional requirements. So imagine from having no tools, no finance department, to being able to report and comply with legal requirements as a listed company has been a tough ride. And so we were looking for tools to support us on this journey.
Thank you, Martin. Yeah, good points. I think especially on this last one, ability to make the changes, also show the track back, and provide a drawdown for external or internal auditors. We see that this is kind of more and more.
Yeah, I can talk more, but I thought we wanted to hear the audience as well. So should we?
Yeah, and I think this is now our audience have heard what were your kind of pain points and challenges. I think we want to kind of run a mini survey to our participants for you to kind of share that. Yeah, so
and maybe while we're waiting for.
Yeah, the poll is on. Sorry to jump in. The poll is on. When you think about your current planning situation in sales and finance, what is your biggest challenge? And just simply give us your feedback on the 5 different challenges and why we are waiting. Martin, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Michael. So I just want to talk a little bit more about the more tactical level. So as Paweł mentioned, having different data sources, having the need to integrate acquired companies with different data structures, so that there has been a lot of spreadsheet massaging that was done. And for those of you who are involved in those processes, we all love spreadsheets. It's a quick way to address it. But if we want to do something repeatedly, then it becomes a nightmare. And so we are looking for how can we organize ourselves so that we consolidate all of the data into centralized locations, and that we also have concurrent access to the same data sources instead of having different versions of files floating around. Version control without a centralized repository is kind of difficult.
And I think, I mean, using spreadsheets. I mean, spreadsheets is a great productivity tool, I think, on the personal level. And I think that when it comes to using it for large organization, a lot of users spread geographically. I think that's where it gets tricky with this, isn't it? And that's where you need to think about a technology that can support this process.
And really quickly, looking at the poll results, we can see that the majority of the attendants share the same challenge: lack of central consolidation point for all data sources, and then followed by a long time to create plans. And the current tool is too static, so I need to go back to Excel. So these are the three really big points which have been taken by the audience.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that mine, Doc, or yours, Martin?
That's mine. So that's his way of lauding what was shared by the audience. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's reconfirming what we said. So let's talk to our audience, Martin, through the journey that you went through. Yeah, and I think you as being part of the commercial sales organizations, some of those boxes are closer to your heart. But I think the main point I wanted to make to audience is and show those connections that you hopefully see how connected the solution is, right? I mean, what we started, like I mentioned, back in the December 2019. There was a basic requirement from the investors to have a clear 3-year plan, financial plan, income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow, just to get the clear visibility. There was an existing Excel that your controlling had, and the deadline was about 6 to 8 weeks to actually deliver the plan. And head of planning decided actually that doing this in Excel would take longer and be more risky. Let's put it in Anaplan. So that was quite a challenge that we at Profit End stood up to, and in this record time we've put quite a nice strategic planning tool for finance that had quite a detailed engine for planning your sales and converting it to revenue through kind of recognition profiles, driver-based planning of the OPEX based on sales and other drivers. Pretty neat solution that we kind of kicked off and gained some momentum at SUSE. I think then, Martin, we moved on to kind of more your area, sales and revenue forecasting, right? Seeing what we have achieved with that first use case, we've addressed the need to help sales management to forecast on a weekly basis in the next kind of quarter based on the opportunities data from the CRM systems. Yeah. Anything you'd like to add, Martin, on that one?
No, you described it nicely. So basically, a plan is a plan, and the moment you put it out, it's probably outdated. And so what we realized that it also needs the ability to be constantly refreshed, and that's what we're aiming for with integrating the planning with the forecasting process. So every change to the forecast obviously has an impact on the future outlook, and that may require a revision of the plan. And with having the 3-year plan in Anaplan, we have been more agile in adjusting and creating new versions, basically, of the plan as the business evolved. And I just want to add.
I think what in searching for revenue forecasting, I think what was driving need for Anaplan was that in your CRM systems you were quite able to log the opportunities, right, and do this do any changes on that level from the sales reps, but it was lacking the capability to actually apply some management adjustments, management calls, yeah, at multiple
management adjustments across multiple dimensions. So we are forecasting not only a single number, but across several routes to market, several product categories, and so on. And so that was a lack that we were seeing in the CM. So we are looking at building a solution that would directly integrate with the finance system, so that the weekly forecasting cadence that we are running in Salesforce has a data feed into the financial modeling and planning. Yes, and then the journey continued, and
so I think we went back in about May 2020. We went back to finance because they said, okay, we've got a 3-year plan, but we want to actually address our more detailed budgeting and forecasting on a monthly basis. Let's plan our OPEX at more detailed level, at the cost center function level, and have more granularity in these plans and support kind of annual budgeting and then quarterly forecasting process. And a big piece of that was the personal planning. I think that was a kind of big success of that phase, right, where we integrated with your HR system, Workday. So I think the comments I've heard from the controllers and the finance users was that we actually have a kind of best in class kind of state of art planning tool for this personal planning. It's your biggest cost, right? And never before they were able to so accurately plan that cost. And once we've achieved that, we moved back to the commercial area. And this is what the box in September, October for targets and quota management at TQM. This is where, Martin, right, for your area, you take the targets from the corporate targets from the 3-year plan. So this is kind of this arrow, and you get also the latest view of how the sales organization, what the actual headcount is. Or the plan headcount, and combined together, you allocate these targets to different geo regions and sales teams. I think previously you've been using Anaplan as part of Micro Focus, but it was I think we gave it a pretty good look at refreshing it, make it more suitable to SUSE requirements rather than the parent company requirements, right? At the time, yeah. And
we added more integration, having this backwards integration from the financial planning to the territory quota modeling was very helpful, and it helped us to drive all the information that we were gathering during the planning process back into the same single data source that everybody had access to.
Yeah, and I think in here this connectivity, I would say that the 3 main data sets or kind of the data layers that were important to connect would be the corporate targets, the sales targets, the employee that was coming here, but I think also we had the connection to CRM from the Salesforce for latest account assignments, right? I think that there were these 3 components that we managed to connect and add value in.
It helped us to make intelligent decisions about individual quotas, allocate those quotas, and manage the entire process from quota setting through to quota letter distribution out of a single tool. And then we are basically submitting so we are running through an approval process in Anaplan TQM, and from there we are sending out the quota letters to the audience. And then the next logical step, I guess, is the last item here on the list,
Yeah, before we jump to commissions, I think what I wanted maybe to highlight is the use of DocuSign for the letters distribution, right? I think that's something that we managed to do, utilize this this kind of integration between Anaplan and DocuSign, so that actually sales people they receive a letter via email in DocuSign with all the details that are coming from Anaplan once they've been approved, right? And then we get a refresh back into Anaplan once they've signed, so we have a good visibility of the status of that process throughout. Right?
Yeah, it allowed us to capture also the rep acceptance of the quota in DocuSign and track the status from Anaplan, so that's giving us a nice repository of our quota letters and to see who has accepted it, who's still debating about it.
Exactly, and I think previously those letters they were done in Word or manually.
Yeah, we used to do a mail merge approach from Excel into Word, then we replaced this with Anaplan, and then with the DocuSign integration, we basically have now content that we can use to send out the letters to everybody.
Brilliant. Yeah, and the last point is commission. So we've attacked the commission management. It felt like a natural step. Okay, we've got all the employee information in our plan. We've got the sales targets. So let's. So what we did, you've used Calidus for the commissions at the time, right? And we made the decision to actually place it in Anaplan to have to close that end-to-end process. So what we only needed to put in there is the compensation plans and connect to the actual sales data into it and run the assignments and create all those engines that are needed for commissions. So that's what we do here right now. Yeah.
And the interesting part is that for setting the quotas and applying the comp plans, we need to do the same calculations that we have to do again when we're looking at commission attainment. So from that point of view, there's a natural connectivity between the quota calculation and the commission attainment calculation. So we could leverage the same calculations across both modules.
Yeah. Actually, what I've realized now, we don't have an arrow anywhere, but actually finance users are going into the commission tool, right, to get their accruals information as well. So that's, we're utilizing the usage. That's what happens when you invest in Anaplan. You start with maybe using it for one of those boxes, but the more boxes you have, then you get more value from using it.
Which feeds back into the planning, because commission accrual means the cost forecast, and that can go into the planning again to refine what we are looking to see for the coming years.
Yeah. Good. I think
should we
got this slide from Martin from you, on kind of a bit of a deep dive, I think, into how the connections, in the quota planning and finance, this interaction, you wanna talk?
Yeah, I can take the slide here, and maybe just to recap, everything is connected, but obviously, and I've also seen on the survey poll, sometimes there are delays in getting stuff done. So in an ideal world, we could address everything in a linear fashion, right? We would have our financial targets, we would define how we're setting up our sales territories, and then we set up the sales quotas and we issue the quota letters. The reality is, through the constant refining of plans, financial targets might change, the number of headcount that we have in the sales organization might change, which always has an impact on the territory definitions and subsequently on the quotas. So the reality is we're not following this linear pattern, but it's more a process that goes through iterations. And this is, as you can see here, so it requires a lot of collaboration between sales and us as the operations team and finance on agreeing on how do we break down those targets and how do we make sure there's a fair balance of the targets that we're setting and also the provisioning of resources to each of the geos and business units and those parts that we're working with. And maybe to add, the good thing is we knew Anaplan from the past, so we know it's not, and that's probably worth noting if you're considering to implement Anaplan, it's not a tool that comes out of the box and gives you functionality. It's more a framework, right? So the benefit of Anaplan is its flexibility, so that we can adjust Anaplan as we are in the process. So it supports an agile approach, and that's what we've been following here as well. So maybe if you want to show the next piece on the slide. So as I mentioned, we're looking to integrate data from various sources. And even before we had Anaplan, we were looking at how can we cut out those idle cycles, and people were waiting for input from someone else. But doing this in a shared spreadsheet, the moment you have 20 people contributing to a spreadsheet, it's not going to fly. And if you want to amend the data, so think about territory definition. So what we have done, we have loaded account data into TQM. So all of a sudden your spreadsheet would go beyond 100 megabytes, and then it's no longer going to fly. And on the account data, we have pulled account data out of our CRM system, but we have also amended it with historic data that we had, like prior year bookings of those customers. We have pulled external data sources like Dun & Bradstreet to understand the size of these customers and then what's their internal size of the organization. And we were looking at our pipeline and renewal potential that we had with those customers. And those sets of data combined were helping us to make intelligent assignment decisions. So we had defined the criteria by which we want to address customers, and that was applied through Anaplan. As you've seen, we have the connection from the financial targets into TQM, so they were automatically feeding into TQM. So we knew exactly what are the targets by geo, by business unit, and we could use Anaplan TQM to further break it down to the individual sales teams, and then engage with the managers to set the individual rep targets. We were modeling the org structure in TQM. So as I mentioned at the beginning, in a growth world, potentially next year's org is looking different to today's org. Some of those changes you don't want to communicate before they're becoming effective, but you need to have the ability to already plan along those lines. So we were modeling next fiscal year's org structure already, and had the ability to plan along those lines. And then we're using all of the information in Anaplan to feed into different processes. So we are also using the output not only to create the individual quota letters, but we're also feeding the targets into the CRM. So we can use targets for dashboards and reports. We're using the territory setup for assignments in our Salesforce system. And as described earlier, we have the commissions tool integrated with Anaplan, and the data flows nicely from TQM into ICM and helps the commissions analysts with setting up our reps for commission payments. And as Paweł mentioned, we have the DocuSign integration, which is a huge step forward in automating the production of the quota letters and also the collection of signatures.
Yeah, because how many reps do we have currently, roughly? Was it 700 or 800?
Yeah, on commissionable employees, it's 700 plus.
Yeah.
That is including different roles, obviously, but each role has different requirements. So we have probably 20 to 30 different flavors of comp plans in our system across those 700 plus heads.
Yeah, so I mean, looking at that timeline, I think, Martin, we did a lot, yeah?
Yeah, I think we want to show the system, so I could talk more, but
yeah. I think before I jump to the system, I want just to wrap up on a kind of yeah, what were the kind of main benefits and value you see? Yeah, I mean, through our discussions, what I've noted, yeah, I think you appreciate the fact that we have everything, all plans in one place. We're looking at consistent structures, and yeah, whether it's an employee data or your different hierarchies of sales regions, how they roll up to geos and so on. And we talked about collaboration. Yeah, this fact that yeah, if you were trying to do this process in spreadsheets, it becomes a nightmare. It takes a lot of time to aggregate. So you're saving a lot of time of the people that you have in your department to enable this. Because I think it's not about data aggregation. It's also distribution. There's a lot of reporting as well, right? I think there's still
reporting. I mean, you need to keep your audience informed, so the various stakeholders we have, sales leadership, finance, and it means if you are doing this outside the system, you have to constantly consolidate partially complete data points, and by basically getting everybody engaged in the same process, we had all of that information consolidated in Anaplan, and we're able to report out of Anaplan. So from my team's perspective, we have saved valuable times, not chasing for data updates, and basically relying on the latest information that was always kept in Anaplan.
Yeah, I think we mentioned the connectivity to all the data sources, giving that transparency and making sure that we're always working on the latest data. And we've talked about DocuSign. I think the last point is quite a nice one. I like that it's important for all the sales organizations to have their letters, and as soon as the fiscal year starts, so they know which accounts they have or what targets they're going for, how they're going to be compensated. I think that's a big motivation factor, I think, isn't it?
It's also a huge business benefit, because think about a sales rep sitting in idle mode waiting for the quota letter. So the earlier we can get them motivated, share with them what their targets are, they can start selling and obviously contributing to our results. Yeah.
Very good. Okay, I think all right. Before I jump to the platform, I've got a few minutes left. I'm watching the clock. Yeah, I think so. Okay, we've deployed those different components over that time we've shown. I think now the tool is well embedded within the IT architecture with the end user. You've got a mini center of excellence of internal support to support the business as usual, but also the continuous improvement, right? So I think that's the idea, that it never stops. Yeah, using the agile approach.
I think that's also key. I mean, once you're going beyond a prototype implementation, I think it's key to have internal resources who are skilled and trained in Anaplan. I mean, as you said, Paweł, we were able to ramp up the initial tools within a few weeks. But for the audience on the call, if your organization is going through transformation and you have to constantly update and improve the systems, you don't want to ask for a budget for each little change, right? So that's where having the skill set in-house, I think it's also valuable. So we're now working with our internal resources, supported by Paweł's team on some of the projects that we are still working on. But fundamentally, we are now in continuous improvement mode, and we have maybe two areas to pick here. The forecasting. So we want to improve from a sales forecasting perspective. We want to go beyond current quarter plus next quarter, and then also look at the future outlook. We're looking at additional enhancements. So Paweł, maybe you want to talk a little bit about the Plan IQ.
Yeah. So I think it's cool features that Anaplan has released recently. You know, going with the flow of where the market is going about planning and utilizing artificial intelligence, machine learning. You know, this is a pretty good proposition that I think would be worth for SUSE to evaluate and see if there's value added. To give again another flavor to the sales projections, you use those artificial intelligence algorithms to give another view to your futures forecast.
Yeah, on the TQM side, our fiscal year starts in November, but we've already started to look into next fiscal year. We don't know yet what changes are coming, but we're trying to get ready for those changes. So we're improving the hierarchy management in TQM, and we're looking at even tighter integration for headcount planning. So we have the HR teams and the finance teams on board to make sure that we have an accurate view on what is the headcount we can work with, how much of the headcount is planned, how much is approved, and what is already in the hiring process. Because again, if you start the fiscal year and you're planning to hire 100 new heads, but the hiring hasn't started, then most likely you'll have to change your territory setup a few weeks into the fiscal year because the heads are not on board. And so the more we can pull this forward and get everybody on the same platform, this will help us.
Yeah. And the last point, I think, is there's another predictive insight, another clever big data, again, artificial intelligence feature that I think could help in TQM here, helping in more intelligent way score the targets, score the customers, right? Something I'm keen to explore with you, Martin, for the next round. Yeah. Brilliant. Shall we look at the platform now? Good. So let me just bring Anaplan platform here. What I'm showing is actually Anaplan in action. We only have a couple of minutes to show. If you interested to see more, hear more, book a dedicated session with us. Happy to walk you through in more detail. But in connection to what we explained, I wanted to show a couple of principal ideas of how we can connect sales, how we can in real action connect the sales, connect the people data, see it through various lenses from the finance point of view or executive management point of view or from sales point of view. So what we're looking at here is how a corporate planning could look like for setting a top-down planning. So we're looking at planning for fiscal year 21 in this case, across different geos. We've got our previous year's sales, and we can adjust the growth for in this case for North America, and for other regions. Everything is kind of synchronizing depending on what we're gonna click in this table. And below North America, I've got a breakdown of the main regions here. We've got them as United States, Mexico, and Canada. Based on the priority sales in this example, we are splitting this target of 590. If we feel that actually America should get a 10%, we can do the override. If we feel Mexico should hold the 81,000, that will do, and all the rest will go to Canada. So some pretty cool features here that can be lifted. I think I'm sure many of you when you're doing your top-down planning could benefit from that. I wanted to get our attention on that number, but in a minute, I think, and we come in a second to see how that looks like from the sales operation point of view. Before we do that, I want to also show you how we plan the workforce. So this is how we could plan our top line from the cost perspective. This is example of how a dashboard could look like for a cost center manager. So we're now going down below in our organizational structure. We're looking at a specific cost center. We can look at different categories of costs, see the workflow of them. I think the one I wanted to look at is salaries and benefits. just to reiterate the point we've been explaining from the SUSE context, where we have usually a list of our personnel with all their different data from HR system. In SUSE example, that was Workday, and we can look at how this translates into our costs. So this is purely kind of from the financial point of view planning. We can look at the individual individual. We can plan the termination dates if we want to change that to a different month for this particular person. We will see that Anaplan will recalculate everything on fly. So what I've shown is changes to the sales planning, changes to the HR. Some simple examples. There's much more you could do, and like I said, let's book a dedicated session to deep dive. But I wanted to show the sales and HR, how it looks from the corporate point of view in comparison to the sales operation point of view. So now, if we are in the shoes of a sales organization management, I've been given a corporate target to meet, and that is my target in yellow. And that 465 is exactly that number that we've seen that was set for United States. And in here, what we can see that the idea here is, okay, this is my projected capacity based on the headcount existing that I have, or including also the plant as well. But looks like from this, as a user of this dashboard, there's a couple of things I could do. I could change underlying assumptions in terms of the attrition, the cost of hiring. I could change the new rep phasing. Have a different assumptions around how much the different type of role in my sales organization can generate from the revenue point of view. I can adjust the productivity. So if I, for example, change productivity for various individuals, about various roles, that will kind of start closing the gaps for me. I can play around with adding some new heads, and I can kind of keep working on this. But all this information that we have here in terms of number of headcount, the target, is all connected to all those things that I've shown before. I'll leave it at that because I think we want to leave a couple minutes for questions and answers. Yeah, there's plenty more I could show you. So yeah, please feel free to book a dedicated session with us. Yeah, so just a question to our moderator. Do we have any questions?
Yes, they are coming in as we speak. Thank you very much so far. So here's the first question. I guess that's a question for Martin. The question is, SUSE is using a lot of different data sources in addition to Anaplan. How does data integration work at SUSE?
Okay, so I'm not the most technical expert, but I can answer this for the tools we've used, and then Paweł chime in if you need to correct me. So there's a data hub in Anaplan. I understand it's possible to connect Anaplan directly with some of the source tools, but since we're using a number of tools, and we're also exchanging data between those other tools, we have decided to use a middleware basically for our data exchange, and that is Delboomi. So Delboomi is a middleware that subscribes to information from data sources and feeds that information into other systems. So that way we get data out of Salesforce loaded into the data hub in Anaplan, but we also use it for Workday information to be transferred to Anaplan. And we use it also between Salesforce and our BI environment, for example, to provide updates of the system.
Yeah, Martin. Yeah, that's exactly right. We're using Boomi connector. I mean, there's various other ETL tools that Anaplan supports. I think what we're also looking into is utilizing the CloudWorks, which is a feature that is as part of license of Anaplan that can connect to Azure or Amazon S3 buckets. So that is something that we could potentially looking at, maybe improving even more, because that would be more economic. There's no license for ETL2 required if you use those options. Any more questions?
Yeah, here's the second one coming in. I guess that's a question for both of you. Actually, there are two questions. Question number one is, how long did the project take? I guess for Martin, and for Paweł, how long usually does Anaplan projects take? So in average, basically.
I mentioned the agile approach. So when the first product, I think we ramped up within 6 to 8 weeks for the 3-year planning, and then we had those additional components that we built on top. I would say the typical, we've been working in sprints, so there were typically like 3 or 4 sprints to ramp up the initial product, and then there were enhancement cycles that we're working through. So Paweł was, what's the norm?
And it depends on the scope, right? It's I think, and that's from experience with other clients and other implementations as well. I think this would be the range. I mean, to build something of a value, I think you're looking at 6 to 8 weeks, and if it's a more complex area, you need a few months for it. But I think, in contrast to the traditional technologies, you're not counting in months and years. It's more weeks or months. I think that's the difference. I think the speed you can deploy in Anaplan is quite a differentiator here.
Okay, here's one question as well coming from the audience. I would say that's a question for Martin. How did you persuade your organization to invest in this project?
Well, with a little help from our friends in finance, I would say, because they desperately needed the integration as well. So we had some good experience, as Paweł mentioned, because we used Anaplan already at Micro Focus. So we were looking to continue having a tool for planning, and with the finance organization looking to have a better integration between the forecasting process and the financial planning. We were able to piggyback on this effort and also build this into this overall scope of the journey.
Very good, thank you very much. And I think we have time for one last final question. I guess, Paweł, that's a question for you. Anaplan is a cloud solution, we learned today. How secure is this from a data protection point of view, and where is the data stored?
Okay, so data stored, there's a couple of data storages in Europe, one in Amsterdam, one in Frankfurt. So in terms of security, there is a broad range of industry standard certificates that Anaplan has, so it's fully secured. I mean, when you look at the logos and companies that use Anaplan, these are all known global brands among our Anaplan's customers. We are compliant with GDPR as well, and to even enhance the security level, there is an option called Bring Your Own Key, which allows the customers to kind of enhance the encryption and even go for a kind of top level of security if needed.
Okay, good. And I can see here's one very quick question. I think the time would allow that. How difficult was it to work on the project while doing the daytime job? I guess that's a question for all of us. Huh?
Yeah, there's also a nighttime.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us have daytime jobs and have projects, and we all need to balance, right? And I would say it's a matter of priorities. If you're fully loaded, then it's probably difficult to add another project. So if this is a critical project for your organization, then you have to make sure that you also get the resources that you need, or that your bandwidth is reserved for the project.
Yeah. And I see for clients, it takes a stretch, right? It's a good question, but it's something that the question of priority and kind of, if you never do it, then you're just constantly going to be in this. Yeah, it's a vicious cycle that you're in. So to break free from it, it takes a bit of maybe more effort than usual, but it's definitely worth it. Yeah.
So I would add one thing, if I may. So I think there's a lot of value in also gaining a little bit of an understanding how Anaplan works. I think it was very helpful for us, and Paweł, correct me if I'm wrong, so I'm not a technical expert, but since we have been working with Anaplan, we had a pretty good idea of what we could ask for, and that helped us to formulate the requirements in a way that they could be easily picked up. And I think there's value in at least having an understanding of the capabilities, and even better if you also have the technical resources in-house. But if you have to work with a company like Profit End, then it's definitely good if you can communicate on a level where you understand each other and then don't have extra cycles for clarifications.
Thank you, Martin.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think looking at the time, I think we should come to an end here. From my perspective, Michael Teufel, looking at the marketing department at Anaplan. Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you very much, Paweł. I think it was a really, really good webinar. Lots of valuable content, very flexible on the questions. So I think it was worth spending almost the hour with you. Thank you very much. And we will now end the webinar.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.